So today what I really want to talk about is, why we use Git and GitHub, the difference between our remote local repositories. We're going to do some of this like practice of creating a Git repository locally as well as remotely, and then linking them together. And we're going to talk primarily about creating or utilizing a branching Git workflow. This is what you should start to utilize. It's going to feel like, clunky and too much work to do it first. But like anything, like any good practice, when you first learn it, it's difficult and it's really slow, right? But then as you get better at it, it becomes second nature. And Git and GitHub or some version of this, you will absolutely use for the rest of your development career. So it is something that you want to take the time to practice and build some skills around right now. So for a warm-up, what I would love for you to do is take a minute and jot down what you already know about Git and GitHub and why we use Git and GitHub. So just take about a minute or so to do that.
Hey, Kat, there's some people saying they're in the waiting room.
Yes. Thank you. If you're stuck in the waiting room, it's because you're late and we're marking that and you will be let in. Not to call anyone out. All right, let's go ahead and come back together. And I would just love to hear from maybe one or two of you about, your responses. What do you know about Git and GitHub? Why do we use Git and GitHub? Sandra, do you have any thoughts, or do you want to share? I know you have thoughts, but would you like to share what you wrote?
Yeah, I think Git is more for like version control.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can make commits at places that are like logical of, I'm going to mess with some stuff and I might want to go back to this version of it in case I break it.
Yeah. And what is version control?
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, I
think someone explained it as like similar to like a Google Doc, in that you can see what all the edits over time were and the different iterations of that document.
Can you do that in a Google Doc?
Yeah, you can see like
that's cool. I didn't know Google Docs. I didn't know they had that capability, but yeah, it's totally like that. Okay, so then it's even more like that now that I know it has that capability. Thank you so much, Sandra. So yeah, version control allows us to literally save a version of our work. And then as in kind of like creates a checkpoint, and then we can work off of that and then create a checkpoint there. And what if we get like 5 checkpoints down and decide, wow, we went down a crazy rabbit hole and this is not where the direction we wanted to go. We can then go back to the checkpoint in time where things were working good and go like change our code, go back in time basically, and then work forward from that point. So it's a great way to, as you said, save the edit history of a process. And now Git and GitHub actually allow us to create what's called a distributed version control system. So what does that indicate? Any ideas? Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, what that distributed word means to me is that it's really involved with like collaboration, and multiple people can kind of work on the same stuff at one time.
Yeah, totally. So think about, like a group of people, of developers, we're all working on the same code base. It would be inefficient for just one person to work on it. And then when Jordan's done working, he pushes it back up. And then only at that point can Dominic take it and then do his part. And then only at once Dominic's done, then Joseph can do it, like an assembly line. That is highly inefficient. So the distributed version control system says that all of you can have the same code base on your machines at the same time and be working. And then we push it back up to a remote repository to hold all those changes. Alex, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if distributed also was around the idea that we don't have to log into a central repository. You just kind of highlighted that we can all pull it down under our local machines. Mm-hmm. Or is there a different word that we use for that?
No, distributed is the word we're going to use to describe like what we're actually doing with Git and GitHub. Otherwise, I think it's just a centralized or non-distributed. I don't know if anyone uses those. Now GitHub is the website that creates that like single source of truth, right? Where we keep all the code, it lives there. And I'm going to meet you, Alex. And then so there's other websites other than GitHub that can do this. There's like GitLab and Bitbucket or other things. So just know that wherever you end up working might not use GitHub, but if you understand GitHub, you'll be able to adapt to whatever website they're using for that. Okay. All right, so let's jump into commands and this branching workflow. So you're probably already familiar with these commits. We have unstaged, staged, and committed. And I was trying today to think about like a cool analogy, and an airplane came to mind. Like, how does an airplane tie in? So if I think of it about like a commit, right? So you write some code, and that code is in the terminal, right? It's not on the airplane yet. The airplane being like Git. And so that's considered unstaged. So Git doesn't even know that code you wrote exists yet. Then when it's staged, your code is on the airplane. Git says, okay, you've made some changes, we're ready to go, right? But then we can take more unstaged code, put it into a stage. So like take that code from the terminal, we can fill up all the seats on the airplane. And then when we're ready to go, we can commit it, and that's when the airplane takes off. And that's when Git saves the work and creates the checkpoint. Does that analogy make sense? I hope so. Any questions about commits? Because I think you've covered this before.
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
How do you do the longer Git messages? Like if you have a long one, I don't think I've ever gone over that.
Well, you don't want it to be super long, but we'll go through some commands and we'll do a commit with a message. So,
yeah, I was gonna say in Mod 0 we talked about if they're in the instance or in the situation where you do need to do a longer one, there's a way to like leave like a paragraph long one that's not in the actual.
Yeah.
Anyway, that may be way ahead from.
I'm not sure. So what I would do is Google it if I needed to, but I typically don't do longer commit messages. And I don't know if you'd want to do really long ones. There's other places on GitHub that would give you opportunities to leave more notes, but commits are generally very succinct. Cool. Okay, so what we're gonna do is with this repo that I have right here, we're gonna actually walk through making this a Git repository. Okay, so there's a couple commands that we're gonna go through. And right now, actually, so does anyone know how to tell? Right now I'm in this repository. Does anyone know how to tell if it's already a Git repository on my local? Ben?
Yeah, if you type ls and then add the tag a, it'll display like some hidden files. And if you see the .git file in there, then it's being tracked.
Great. So ls-la or a will list our hidden files. And what we'll see is if this was a Git repository, there would be a hidden .git file. So this is a good way to see if this is a Git repository really quickly. So if we do a git init, right, this will establish this directory as a Git repository. So it's like an initialization. So when we do git init, okay, it tells us it did the thing. We can see now I have a branch. I'm working on a branch, but also now if I do the ls-a, can see that now there's this hidden .git file. Okay. Questions about that? Okay.
I do have a question. I'm so sorry.
No, don't be sorry at all. Go ahead.
So you said that when you did your git initialize, you said that you're working on a branch now. So then where did it like allocate the like trunk of this already, or is that something that we have to set up?
So automatically it defaults to master as like your main default branch, which we don't want. We actually want this to be called main. So it used to be called master, but living in a more inclusive world, we want to call it main. And actually, when you create a new repository now on GitHub, it automatically makes main as your default. Git has not updated that quite yet. So what we can do is we actually have this code snippet, and I will give this to you later, so you don't need to like handwrite it all down. But what this will do is change our master to main. So if we do that right off the bat, we'll never have an issue switching our default branch. So main is going to be the branch, and we'll talk more about branching, but main's going to be the branch where we always have pristine working code. Okay, so that's the idea with main. And I'm not sure, did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did.
Okay, awesome. Adam?
Yeah, if I see you just changed master to main, does that impact some of the code that you might put in? So if you do git commit -u origin master, do you now have to use the word main, or do you still use that word?
I never am going to use the word master again.
Got it. Okay. This is a all across the board change.
Correct. So, and that's why doing it right off the bat, as soon as I have initialized this Git repository, takes away any kind of issues. If you've already started your project and you have your main branch is called master, if you try to switch it over, there's just some additional work or additional steps you'll have to do. So from now on, moving forward, when you have new projects, this should be like the first thing you do if it creates it on master, which I'm guessing it would.
I'm going to chime in here. I think GitHub as a company is going to change that, like as a whole. They said they're moving away from like slavery references, and now they're going to be going to like as a whole company change that, so it'll like affect how you create repositories in the future, I think. Right. So I mentioned GitHub, right? Already, when you create a new repository on GitHub, makes main your default branch. Mm-hmm. This is Git. So Git is not updated yet. But yeah, GitHub is moving to that, which is really great. All right, there's some more hands up. Gus, do you have a question or?
Yeah, so if you, on your local repository, change the name to main, will then, if you try to push to GitHub, will it then like think that you're making a new branch called main, or does it create conflict in that sense?
Well, I don't have a remote repository yet, but because when I go create a repository on GitHub, since it automatically now makes the default branch of main, I will have no problems.
Okay, but I guess it matters then, like at what point you do that. Like you can't start working and then think, oh, I forgot to change it to main, and do it after you've already, I don't know. And maybe that's something that they'll work out the kinks as they're figuring out how to migrate all of the language, but.
Yes, if you've already done work on, like you've done commits on master, that's when you're gonna start to, there's just a few more steps to do to transfer everything over.
Okay, thanks.
Karen?
Sorry, did you say that you're doing?
What? Sorry, Karen, you're really low. Can you?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Did
Did you say you're going to provide the text for us to switch over? You did? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, and it should be in the lesson plan too, that's linked for this. Perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and keep going. This is definitely not the main point, right? Don't worry, this will work out and you'll get the feel for this. But just know moving forward, we want that pristine branch to be called main. Okay. All right. So where are we at? So what I have here right now is just, I just wrote like a little test for this planet class and then a planet class doesn't have anything in it. So basically I'm just starting a project and I don't have like much code yet, but I want to get this up, like the file structure and everything up on my remote repository. So, so I can start working within that branching Git flow. Okay. So what I need to do here is first, if we do a git status, that will show us what is unstaged, right? So these are my files that are still in the terminal. Git sees them, but it's not doing anything with them yet. Okay, so all I'm gonna add right now, I'm just gonna add the lib and actually all I wanna add is the notes. So I'm gonna do git add notes.md because I just wanna create the initial file structure. And now if I do a git status, I can see that these ones are still unstaged. Oh, sweetie. Okay, later. All right. The notes.md, he came home from preschool, had to show me something. So is staged. So this file is on the airplane, okay? And then the last thing we need to do to send this off to actually save it is do a commit. So I'm going to do a git commit -m, and this is where I can leave the short message, right? So I'm just going to do initial commit, just because that sets up my project, right? And now I need to get it to my remote repository. So to check right now, if this needs to be linked though, right? If I try to do a git push origin main right now to push it up to my remote repository, it's telling me that that doesn't exist, right? Because I haven't linked this to anything yet. Does anyone know the command to check to see if you've linked something yet? If you've linked an uplink? Isabel?
Is that going to be the git remote /v?
Yeah, git remote v. Yeah. So it worked, but there's nothing there. So git remote -v would show you if you've got anything hooked up there. And I do not. So let's go ahead and make a repository. Let me pull this down. All right, so I'm on my GitHub account. I just go to new. Let's just do planet test. Create. And see here how it says main. So GitHub has made that switch now for any new repositories. There's no more branch called master. It is main. All right, so I'm going to copy this line. The stuff I'm doing right now, is this review or is this brand new? Can you give me, like in the participants panel, a yes if it's brand new or a no if you've seen this part before? Ah, okay, cool. I will slow down then. I apologize. Any questions yet on how I set up this repository, Aiden?
Cool. I had a question about the initial commit message. If we're like creating a new branch of something, is it best practice to also put that message for our first commit with that?
No, not for a branch. This is because I'm initial commits when you're just creating the project.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. So if you notice, this is a lot of stuff that we've already done, right? Git init, we did that in our local. We did the git add some kind of file so that there's something to push up to the repository. We did a commit and added a message. We didn't do this branch part. Oh, I wonder if that would do the same thing. It might. That's okay. But anyways, you're not going to put in these commands. The only command we need to do right now is this one, git remote add origin, and then this is the address of this repository. So if we copy that, and we're gonna switch back over to my local and just paste it here. So this is saying git remote, so add a remote, name it origin, and then this is the location of that. So then if we do git remote -v, I can see now I have origin, a remote called origin, and I have fetch and push privileges. So I can push and pull. Okay, cool. So now I have somewhere, I've got my commit made, and now I have somewhere to put it. Vanessa, go ahead.
What is the difference between the git remote add orange, yeah, you know what I mean, and git clone?
So git clone is when I'm cloning an existing repository. So this one I'm adding it because I don't have an uplink, like I don't have a remote. When you do a clone, it automatically adds this remote link for you.
Okay, so when you created the repo in GitHub, it doesn't automatically means that you have the repo, you have to add and then you have it.
Right, so this one, right, there's nothing in this repo right now on GitHub. It is completely empty. It is brand spanking new. So, but what I want to do is I created a project on my local, my computer, and I want to get it up here so other people can clone it if they want to.
Oh, okay, I was thinking the other way around. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and push this up now. I'm going to do git push origin main to start this repository. Cool. So now if I go back here and refresh it, I can see I've got my initial commit here with my notes. And so that is up. Cool. So really the purpose of this is just to establish the project. And now I can start a branching workflow. Okay. I'm going to put in your, where is it? In your channel, where are my steps? Some of these steps so you can follow along. These should also though be in the lesson plan, but I'll add it anyways, just so you have it. Okay. All right, so right now, I just created my project, we're up, but now I wanna start actually adding some code. So I've got some, two super simple tests written here, and then I just wanna add some code. So, but I don't wanna work on my main branch. Okay, remember main, whether you're working solo, with a partner, with a group, with a team, you don't wanna work on main. Main is always the super pristine code that's already been tested and reviewed. And then that reviewed and tested code can be merged into main so that you have working code. But main should always be pristine. So because I don't want to work on that, I want to work on a branch. So I'm going to create a branch. To do that, the name of my branch should be something that describes like the functionality I'm going to be working on. And I'm going to be working on this like planet class. So I'm going to do git branch -b and then name my branch. The -b will create the branch and move me to the branch. And we'll see that here. This main will change. I'll call this planet class. Whoops, I did it wrong. I probably did my command wrong. Oh, git checkout. I'm sorry. I did the wrong thing. I apologize. It's not git branch. It's git checkout -b. So that's going to create the new branch and move me. That keyword checkout is how you move between branches. Planet class. Awesome. So now I've switched to a new branch called planet class. It's right there. If I type the command git branch, it'll show me the two branches that I have. All right. We will take a palm. I know this is a lot. GitHub is a lot the first time you see it. And the more you practice it, it gets easier, I promise. Before we do a POM though, do you have any questions about branching? I mean, we really haven't talked about it much yet, so we'll get there, but about the command I just did. V, go ahead.
When you create, does it move you to that branch automatically, or do you have to CD into it?
Oh, not CD, because I'm not creating a directory. Right? I'm creating a branch on Git, which is totally different. So when I do the git checkout -b, it creates the new branch and moves me to that branch. So you'll see here in my terminal, I've got it set up so it tells me what branch I'm on. So I can see here I'm on main, then I did that git checkout -b, and now I'm on my branch of planet class. So now any new code that I create right now and I do my add and committing process, that code's gonna be saved on planet class, not on main.
Got it, thanks.
Yeah, great question. Sydney, go ahead.
Yes. How do you determine the life of a branch? Like, how long do you keep that branch?
That's a good question. Right, so you want some kind of like a chunk of functionality, not something that's too big, like not the whole project. So I think that's a hard one to answer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good question though. Yessie, go ahead.
Yeah, so once we create a new branch, and it takes us to the new branch, but if we want to go back to the older branch, how would we do that?
Your keyword is checkout. So I would do git checkout main, pops me back to main, git checkout, let's go back to planet class. Now I'm back on planet class. So that checkout keyword will switch you.
Okay, got it.
Cool. Ben, last question, and then we'll go take a POM.
Yeah, I was just kind of struggling to kind of place this into how we would use this, for instance, on our, like if we needed to implement this on our flashcards thing, is there like, how would you go about implementing branches on that?
Yeah, say any piece of functionality. So I know you have to create like cards, right? So maybe you create your project and then right away you make a branch called like, you create cards. And then so you go to a branch and you do all the work that you need to do to create card instances. When that's finished, I'll show you how to get that back onto main. And then when that's finished, then you move on, maybe you start working on your deck and creating a deck. That could be another branch. And we'll look at that workflow as soon as we come back from the POM, okay? Cool, all right, take 5, friends. Okay, so we left off, we had just created this planet class, right? We initialized our Git repository for this brand new project. We pushed up an initial commit on main just to establish this project and establish our remote repository on GitHub so that we have somewhere to connect the two. So now that we're actually ready to start working, we're gonna go ahead and create a branch to, like it's like a container that's gonna hold work that is similar, right? We're not gonna, this also helps keep us focused, kind of like TDD, right? So I'm not gonna start working on my universe class because I'm working on the planet class. That's what this branch is working on. Okay, so a couple of things here. I already have these like tests written for it. So since those are already written, pretend I just typed those right now though, okay? I had them done there for the sake of time since this is not a TDD lesson. So what I wanna do now is I've got this code, it's in the terminal, right? It's unstaged. I'm ready to stage it and then commit it because I follow TDD and I wrote my test first, right? So our command to see like what's the status of Git right now. We have our Git status. Okay, so I'm going to add my test directory. So you can actually add a directory. And then if I do Git status, cool, I can see, so lib and my notes, those are still unstaged. I'm not worried about those ones yet, but my planet test now is staged and ready to be saved. Okay, so I'm gonna save that with a commit with the message of add planet attribute test. Okay, because that's what this just creates, tests that my planet exists and tests that it has some attributes. Cool. And then we can actually just create the planet class. Awesome. Okay, so code's written. We're done with that. Perfect. That was quick code, huh? All right, so now same thing. Let's check our status. Let's add my lib directory, which should just, it only has planet in it right now. We'll check status, right? We've got our planet.rb staged, ready to go, so we can commit that. Git commit, I'm gonna say add planet class and attributes. Cool. And now our status is we're clear. I've got this one, but that's untracked, so I'm not gonna, or unstaged, I'm not gonna worry about that one. Okay, so maybe that's all I had to do on my planet class. Work done, easy peasy. So now what I'm ready to do though is push this up to get it ready to merge it into my main branch. Okay, so let's say like I've got tests here. I know this code is working. It's not gonna break anything. It's not gonna break my project. Maybe I asked, you know, a buddy to review it for me, make sure I didn't make any syntax errors, but I have tests, so I would have caught that already too, right? So what I wanna do is now push this branch up to GitHub, because GitHub is the interface we're gonna use to create what's called a pull request. And I'll show you that in a second. So our command to push this up is git push origin, because remember origin is the name of my remote link, and then the name of this branch, which is planet class. Okay, so I'm gonna push that up. Awesome. Now, when I go to GitHub, I see this yellow bar here that says, oh, look, a branch has pushes. What do you want to do with that? Typically when we push a branch up, we're doing that to create a pull request. So we're going to do that. And a pull request, it's also called a merge request in some other platforms, but basically it's going to put the planet class branch, it's going to merge it into my main branch so that that main branch is updated. So this is where you could leave more comments. You see my commits are right here. I could leave comments here like this branch adds the planet class, all tests are passing. So if you needed to leave some additional notes. Okay, and now I'm gonna create the pull request. Since you're working solo, you're going to merge your own pull requests. We'll talk next week about pair GitHub, but for your solo project, you'll still wanna follow branching workflow. And right here it says this branch has no conflicts, which means you're good to go. You can go ahead and merge this. You have to press like confirm about 3 times. Right, so now you've successfully merged and closed. You don't need to delete the branch. There's no point in doing that. And now if we go back to our code, to our main page, we can see here, we're on our branch main, and our lib and test folders are in here. I can see in my planet RB, I can see that code that I added, and that's on main. So main now has all the code from my branch. Sam, question?
So just to kind of wrap it up a little bit in terms of concept, like you have a whole Git repository. If I could just use these figures in front of me, I guess, like you have this whole repository here, and you go into another directory, like you're in the lib directory.
Okay.
We're talking about directories right now too. That if you make a branch, like testing branch in another directory, that branch still has everything outside of that directory, right?
Well, so what Git is tracking is not, Git tracks everything inside of this directory, my Git 1. If I do present working directory, I can see I'm in this Git 1. So Git is tracking everything inside of this, whether it's a directory, a file, a subdirectory, a subdirectory.
Got it.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
Cool. All right, cool. So main is now good to go, but Okay, so main's good to go. I merged my pull request. On my local now, I'm still on Planet class. I need to get back to main. So I'm glad, and I forget who asked it, but whoever asked about how to switch branches, right? So checkout is my keyword. So if I go back now to main, right? So now I'm on main. If we look at Adam now though, oh, see, I always do this. I'm gonna switch real quick. What I recommend is whenever you are going to switch branches to close your note, close your tabs in your Atom, because sometimes it'll leave files open that are not necessarily on the branch that you switch to. That might not make sense until it kicks you in the butt, which it will. All right, so now if I go back to main, okay, and here on main now, I can see that I don't have all that stuff. I don't have a lib directory. I don't have a test directory, right? Because my main has not been updated. So what we need to do is pull the main from here to update my local directory. So what I'm gonna do is do git pull origin main. So what this says is go to the origin, that remote repository, and pull down the main branch and update my main branch on my local. Cool. So it did some stuff. Now if I look here at my file tree, I can see lib and test are indeed here. Sydney, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a still mystery to me. What's the difference between git checkout main and git switch main?
So switch is a newer git command. I'm pretty sure switch will do what checkout does. I think checkout does a switch plus additional things.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm used to checkout, so I use it. I do think you can use switch though.
Okay.
Great question. Joe?
Is having the main on your computer always necessary, or is it sometimes the main just be the repository, remote repository?
You're always going to have a main on your local because you need to have that to make sure you can update. Right? Because the idea is this, if I didn't, now what I'm going to do is now I want to add like a universe class or something. So I need to work off the most up-to-date code that I have. So I pulled main to update my code. And now I would do another branch. I would do git checkout, another branch called create universe class. Okay. Now I'm on another branch, but I've got all of my Planet code. If I had not updated my main and I just switched over, I wouldn't have any of that Planet code. So I'm not sure if that makes sense yet. The more you work with us, the more it will make sense. Okay, what I want, yeah, like thanks, kind of. So what I want to do is let you all practice this. So I'm gonna put you in breakout rooms of about 3 people. I'm gonna put some instructions. Basically, you're gonna recreate what I just did. So you're gonna create a new repo, you're gonna push it to establish a remote repo, and then you're gonna do a branch and add some whatever code to the branch. Doesn't need to be complicated, just add like a file called hello and add your name to it or something, just so you have something to push up. And then you're gonna push that up, go through the merge request, pull request, it's called a pull request, and merge that into main and then update your local with main. So the idea is you're gonna be working independently on your computer, but you're gonna be in a breakout room. So when you have questions, when you run into a snag or an issue, you have other people to ask. Okay, does that make sense? Kind of. All right, so I did a little overview quick sheet, and you've got the Git workflow with the commands. So you should be okay, but I will pop around through rooms to make sure everyone's doing okay. Any questions about what you're doing right now? Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, I was following the lesson. I know you said you did an overview quick sheet. You're saying that's on your Git repository that you just made?
No, so it is in your Slack channel.
Great. I didn't see that. Thank you.
No worries. And then also the lesson plan that's linked, on the Turing website for this has all of these commands as well. Perfect. All right, have fun experimenting. Just in case anyone else had this issue too. Okay, so so you're on your main branch. Okay, so when you're back on main. I think it did it, right? Because you see down here it updated everything.
It did work, but I don't know why it's sending this error or this warning.
It's just a warning. So with warnings, they'll still work. So
okay,
you can squelch this message. Squelch, that's funny. Okay, so you're fine. So it worked. It's just spitting out some error or warnings for you.
Okay, it's just letting me know not to do something in the future. I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, no, it looks fine. I'm not sure why it did that. So
okay.
Cool. Vanessa, question?
So I did everything wrong. So how do I delete the repo from GitHub?
Oh, from GitHub, if you go into settings, scroll down, there's like a warning danger section. That's how you can delete the repo from GitHub.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I know that this is a lot. Yeah, danger zone, I know it's a lot. GitHub is a lot, but like I told one of the groups, it's like tying a shoe. Like you probably don't even remember tying a shoe. You did so long ago, but it's so frustrating, right? When you first learn to tie a shoe, you can't do it. But then you practice, it becomes second nature, okay? So I highly recommend like working with other people to get this branching workflow down. Working with your mentor, that's a good way for them to walk you through it as well, but keep practicing it. Okay. So